Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you of a brand new Tier 6 turreted American premium tank destroyer. It's the T78. If you like vehicles like the T67 or the Hellcat, then, or even the Slugger, then this is going to be the vehicle for you. It comes with a unique style, although you do have to purchase it as an additional cost, called the Federalist. And yeah, I don't think we really need to question why, right? Alright, so let's take a quick look at the statistics of the T78, see how it stacks up to other American tank destroyers at Tier 6, and then I'll follow it up with some Ace Tanker gameplay, and let you know my full opinion about whether this vehicle is worth a pickup or not. So with the tank in question on the left, let's see how it compares to the Hellcat and the Jackson. Alright, first up, the T78 uses a 90mm main armament, a lot like the other two vehicles in this comparison. Now 240 alpha damage at Tier 6 is pretty good, but there are quite a lot of other vehicles like the SG-100 for example that really will outtrade this tank as a tank destroyer. Now the damage per minute of the T78 is right in the middle of the Hellcat and the Jackson, pretty much right there, with 7.23 rounds a minute compared to the Hellcat's 7.06 and the Jackson's 7.5. Now this damage per minute is definitely not great, but considering how flexible this vehicle is, you probably weren't expecting to have a wild rate of fire and a great DPM on a Tier 6 tank destroyer. Alright, so the shell velocity on this vehicle is definitely not great. What happens if we load the gold with this tank? If we load the gold with this tank, interestingly enough, it actually has worse penetration, so less pay to win than the Hellcat and the Jackson, with 221. That's a little bit frustrating when you do manage to get inside your Tier 8 matchups, although, as we're going to see from the gameplay, you can still make it work. But with the shell cost being a whopping 4,400 for only 240 alpha damage, you're definitely not going to be making very many credits, or you're probably going to be losing them if you are dabbing that 2 key excessively. Now this vehicle carries 47 rounds, the same as the Jackson, which does give it an advantage over the Hellcat, and as many experienced Hellcat drivers will know, you start to run out of ammunition in that tank towards the latter part of the game. So now let's move on to gun handling. We can see the T78 is worse with regards to aim time and accuracy than the Hellcat and the Jackson. Although its dispersion values when moving are worse than the Jackson as well, and its turret traverse is the same, it's way better than the Hellcat, and so this kind of balances out the aim time advantage that the Hellcat has, although undoubtedly the Jackson is going to have far better gun handling than the premium T78. One thing that's lovely about this vehicle is the full 10 degrees of gun depression that it has. This is a very flexible tank destroyer, even on ridges. You can go up slopes and still be able to engage opponents all around the tank. And with a fully traversable turret, if you take a camo net and binoculars on this tank, because you can't use vents, and so you're probably going to be taking a gun rammer along with them, you can just sit the hull down and keep your binoculars and that camo net activated while you turn the turret, as it can go 180 degrees to the left and the right and keep engaging your opponents. Alright, so now on to mobility. Yeah, kind of good, but also kind of bad news for the T78 here. Again, it's right in the middle of the Hellcat and the Jackson. 55 forwards and 14 backwards. That 14 backwards is actually really nice. Since the Hellcat got nerfed down to 12, this thing can pull back round corners way faster than its Tier 6 counterpart. While its engine power is great, the vehicle is also heavy, and so while its power to weight is just shy of what the Hellcat is, it's significantly better than the Jackson, so it's way more mobile than the Jackson is, but doesn't quite keep up with the Hellcat. Now the traverse speed of this vehicle is 30 degrees on the tracks, but also one thing that's interesting is that the turret traverse is 20 degrees, so it's just a little bit better than the Hellcat and the Jackson, definitely something to consider. But when we can also take into account that those vehicles have upgradable engines, the effective traverse of this vehicle is just worse than the Hellcat and the Jackson. So while it might be as fast in a straight line up until that top speed limit of 55 kilometers an hour, yeah, the Hellcat probably just feels a bit more mobile than this. And that probably comes down to the armor, the fact that the T78's armor is 25.4 millimeters at the front and the side. Now this means that you're going to be able to bounce 75mm guns occasionally, although apart from things like a Cromwell, you're probably not going to be standing too much chance. And against 90mm caliber guns or even 80mm caliber guns, you really do not want to get caught out, as they will be overmatching your tank. When it comes down to the turret armor on the T78, it's not really great news either with 76. It's only high explosive rounds that you're really going to be tanking. Hit point wise, 600 hit points. That's not bad, but it's definitely not great. When you're dealing with Tier 8 tanks, there are some that can one-shot you, like an ISU-152, or there are even Tier 7 medium tanks like the Leo that are going to be killing you half the time with only 2 shots. And so 600 definitely doesn't go a long way when you compound it with the terrible armor that this vehicle has, and it truly is a glass cannon that you want to be avoiding all fire and trying to stay at mid to long ranges, or just using the flexibility of the turret to be able to avoid your opponent's shells altogether. One thing that is nice about all of these tanks, and it's quite surprising about the Hellcat, is 370 meters view range. I guess that's because the vehicle is completely open top, which gives the commander a nice, easy view. Although do keep in mind, if high explosive rounds hit the top of your vehicle, they are going to be devastating. Anyway, I mean, we can't really just keep talking about a vehicle that is this flamboyant, right? Let's give it a trial by combat on the battlefield. So I got a few ace tankers in this vehicle inside really nice matchups against tier 6 tanks and below. I'm just farming people at long ranges. What I wanted to show is this vehicle out of its comfort zone when it's having to deal with equal and higher tiered opponents. Although I warn you that I'm going to be firing a lot of premium rounds inside this game. So I'm going to try. And let's also, when I'm firing them, let's talk about whether I needed to fire those premium rounds. Now, one thing that I mentioned during the statistical review of this vehicle is just how bad the premium rounds are on this vehicle compared to the Hellcat. 221 is not 246, and it's one of the nicest things about the tier 6 standard American tank destroyer. So when you get yourself into a bad matchup, it's absolutely brutal. Alright, so I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to get forwards as quickly as I can, and I'm just hoping that this challenger is going to give me his turret. Come on, bud. Come on, bud. There you go, right into the top. It is so lovely to have a fully traversable turret on a tier 6 TD. It does make this tank feel more like a medium tank, and if you can have a medium tank with effectively a tier 7 medium tank gun at tier 6, well, that's great, right? If you compare this gun to the Cromwell, for example, I think everyone would rather have this. Higher penetration, better aim time, but maybe a little bit worse accuracy, but still not terrible accuracy. And just having that 240 alpha damage, if I could have this gun on the Cromwell, of course I would. And really that's what this vehicle is. It's not a full medium. It's kind of a medium. What this vehicle is a medium tank that sacrifices armor and some of the turret traverse and arguably some of the traverse speed of the vehicle as well to be able to gain a big old gun. That's what this tank is, and that's what makes these American turreted tank destroyers so powerful. It's why a lot of people love to play tanks like the T77 at tier 5. You can be extra sneaky with those tank destroyer concealment bonuses, and just having a better gun than a medium tank, yet having, I'd say, at least 80 or 90% of the flexibility that a medium tank would have. So I guess these premium rounds that I'm firing here against the ARL are kind of unnecessary, but we're going to put one through the Challenger's turret there, and I'm really wanting to shoot the Scorpion G right now. What was this Challenger doing? He's just looking up. Okay, I mean, I guess the Challenger was giving us his head. Maybe what happened there is he got so angry that I think I ammo racked him a couple of times. That's probably why his ammo rack was damaged. He just decided he wanted to get out of this game. He couldn't be bothered to play again. Maybe he went tilt from having his ammo rack damaged maybe 3 times in a row by me, for all we know. Well, we clearly know I did damage his ammo rack twice, but maybe when we shot him earlier in the turret it damaged his ammo rack as well and he just had enough of this game. Well, I'm not complaining. I'll shut down a higher tier tank destroyer, but I'm very worried about this IS-2 and also the T-34. These turreted tank destroyers just feel so lovely being able to engage people going into positions. I wish I hadn't been spotted going up here because it's going to be harder to be able to get the ambush shot against our opponents. But just having this flexibility with the turret is really what makes this tank very special. Now, I definitely wouldn't have penetrated that shell if I'd been using a standard round there. And keep in mind that every time I fire one of these APCR rounds, it's costing me 4,400 credits. But also, when I was in my good matchmaking in this vehicle, and I played about 10 games in the tank just to get an overall idea of the vehicle, I was making very decent credits when I was firing my standard rounds against tanks which I could easily penetrate. And so, when you do get in your +2 matchmaking in a vehicle like this, it is premium, it does make okay credits. If you're running a premium count as well, you will still very much break even if you're firing pretty much full premium with this vehicle, as long as you're not constantly bouncing. And considering that the new matchmaker, this is quite rare to even be able to get in these +2 games. Please do keep that in mind is all I'm saying. I'll talk about high alpha tank destroyers. There's an Su-100. I don't want to sit in front of that for very long. After I've taken a hit from the artillery for 279 damage, that means that the tier 6 Soviet TD will be shutting me down in a single shot. Now we put a good old hit into the side of that tier 7, I believe. Is that the Chinese or is that the Soviet tank? The heavy tanker. Well, we don't really need to worry about that. But the T-34-85 comes out of nowhere, ammo racks me, Luckily, I decided to repair my ammo rack to be able to get an extra round in and finish off the tier 6 Soviet medium tank. But now I am down to 151 hit points. It just shows you how fragile vehicles like this are. It's not really until you get to tier 7, at least for some of the tank destroyers, that you even start to have a decent amount of hit points that you can take a hit or two. I'm down to 151 hit points even though I've only been hit twice this game. Now sure, I guess I was lucky that the artillery didn't penetrate me, but that's a low caliber artillery. That's an AMX-13 F3. That's not a big caliber artillery. To still do 279 damage to me is pretty darn brutal. Alright, so I'm up to 2,000 damage. That's a very good game for any tier 6 tank destroyer. But we've still got our work cut out for us if we want to take this game down. So I don't want to fight it out on the hill. At this time I was thinking that the T-34 was going to basically crest some of the ridges over here. And if he does that, it doesn't have the best view range, but still it should be enough, especially if he's using coated optics. He's got a very good crew on that tank to be able to spot me at a decent distance. So I wanted to try and get away from him, and instead try and focus up engaging other tier 8 tanks on the enemy team. How about that? Right through the front of the Type 59. Beautiful stuff. Now he's down to a one-shot, and I was just hoping that the charioteer on my team was going to be able to engage him as well, although I don't know what this charioteer is up to. Let's have a look. Okay, I guess he's just looking, trying to find a shot on the Type 59. Why doesn't he fire? Ah, looks like he just hit the rock there. That's pretty outrageous, and the Type 59 is going to put a round into him. So while the charioteer is bouncing off the Type 59 and getting engaged by him, I'm on my way round to see if I have to be the guy to finish off the Type 59. Although I'm also worried about getting caught out by the SU-100 or the T-34, so I don't want to stay down this alleyway for too long. Alright, so I see the Type 59 fired around there into the charioteer, and good stuff, but you managed to shut him down finally, and so now we're in a 5 versus 5 situation. Although this is a 5v5 situation where they've got a tier 8 heavy tank and we've got a tier 8 tank destroyer, and I'd probably rather have the heavy tank, unless of course we can try and control the range of engagement at a decent distance, and then probably the tank destroyer is going to have the advantage. Alright, talking about advantages, hopefully I can get the jump on this AMX-13 F3 here. Oh dear. Well, it doesn't look like the charioteer was able to quite get a long distance engagement here, and I wasn't able to hit the AMX. I do one spotting to him, oh dear. And the T-34 is on the warpath towards me. And now they have a tier 8 and a tier 7 tank and a tier 6 self-propelled gun versus a tier 7 tank destroyer and 2 tier 6 tank destroyers with a tier 6 self-propelled gun in support. Now I'm going to use the pretty okay mobility of this vehicle to get away. You're definitely going to be able to outrun every single heavy tank. I can't really think of a heavy tank that this vehicle is going to meet that will be able to catch up to it. Maybe if you get yourself up against an FCM-50T, but even then you can probably still keep a good distance against it. And you really have to be making use of the speed of this vehicle against your heavy tank opponents, and even against your medium tank opponents. You want to engage at as long range as you possibly can, or wait until the vehicle is engaging one of your allies, where you can play the supporting role, hopefully with the flexibility of having that fully traversable turret, a decent amount of camo rating to even be able to spot at long range and hopefully be able to shoot them without getting spotted, or just to hope you get lucky in close quarters combat and maybe dodge a shell, right? But with the 120mm gun that's on the T-34, as I mentioned, with the armor on this vehicle being 25.4mm at the front and the side, even if it just glances the vehicle, to all intents and purposes, it's going to overmatch and be able to shut us down. Okay, so I thought the T-34 might be making his way towards me, but instead the T-34 is actually on his way up the hill to try and get the E-25. So what I'm going to do now is just make sure that I'm not allowing the T-34 to isolate anyone. He's got a long reload, so if he shoots one of my friends, I want to be able to shoot him as well, because we've got to start to whittle down his hit points. He's got 732 hit points. Wow, that's great actually, 627. So previously it would have taken me 4 shots to be able to shut the guy down, more times out of 10 than not. Now I will be killing him in 3 shots unless I roll ultra low. Alright, so the T-34 has kind of run away, and I'm thinking maybe he left his self-propelled gun behind. The T-34 is either going to make his way up on top of the hill, or alternatively he's going to make his way down here. I thought he was going to try and go up on top of the hill to be able to engage the E-25, so I want to try and take advantage of that and see if I can engage the AMX-13 F3 on the enemy team. So I'm thinking I should probably be loading a high explosive round here, because I don't really have the alpha damage, only 240 on my standard rounds to be able to shut down the AMX. And we know that he has most of his hit points left. Oh, I'm actually pretty lucky that he's down to 157. I don't know when he took that damage, but that's very fortunate for me. I should have probably had a high explosive round there to be able to finish him off. I didn't. I also got a little bit lucky that he didn't hotshot, I guess, but I really didn't expect him to be in that position, ready to rain hell upon me. But still, 2,300 damage and 3 kills in the worst possible matchmaking for this vehicle. We're doing very well indeed. Okay, so now we got 3 people versus 1 player. Well, what are we going to do? Well, clearly we're going to have to try and make sure that we... Whoop, didn't really mean to bump that Hellcat there, but I also don't want to faff around as I want to try and get to these rocks. What we want to do is to force the slow-moving, derpy American heavy tank to turn his turret towards one of us while the others flank. And so even though the E25 is a one-shot, I'm a one-shot, and the Hellcat can take 2 shots, which is quite nice if the need arises. We basically want to catch the T34 in a crossfire. So the E25 is there, the T34 starts to turn his turret towards him, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come around the corner and distract the T34 as well. Now the T34 only wants to shoot me, he doesn't want to shoot the E25 behind him, and we're actually going to bounce a standard round here off the front of the tank, showing you that I should have just kept firing gold, right? But I didn't want to waste any more credits than I had to. Nevertheless, a very decent round here for the T78. And just a classic takedown of higher tiered vehicles. Look, you shouldn't rush in. Irrelevant of how awesome this vehicle looks, you're very vulnerable. You shouldn't rush into a situation with a heavy tank or a medium tank. It is all about engaging with your friends. Or you play the long-range support role. Soften them up, and then hopefully use your hit points to finish off key targets, or alternatively just wait until they're weak enough that you can come and finish them off with a single shot, or at least play the support role and work with your allies to be able to whittle them down. And if you do that, this is one hell of a fun tank destroyer to play. Having that flexible turret, again, is the reason why the T67 is probably one of the best SEAL clubbers in the game. Although, I think that if you're a pure tank destroyer player, I'm not sure this vehicle is going to be the one for you. I think this vehicle is more for a medium tank player who wants to play a tank destroyer or wants to play a medium tank hybrid that has a better gun. On the other hand, if you have American tank destroyer crews that you want to train up, we don't really have too many options. You've got the Scorpion at tier 7. Obviously, you've got the new TS5 if you manage to unlock that inside the Mission Marathon, but that's not really a flexible vehicle, is it? Or I guess you've got the T28 HTC, the tier 7 reward. But again, that vehicle isn't a full premium, and so you're going to be losing credits or breaking even in the majority of your games. So this was an ace with no battle hero medals. We actually don't even finish top on experience here. The E25 on our team and also the SU100M1 pulled off some big games. I guess the 25 probably wouldn't have pulled ahead of me there if he hadn't managed to have the free farm on the T34 at the end. I probably could have played that situation better and loaded another gold round to be able to shut him down. Although I did only just break even. I made 5,000 credits in this tank, and when we take away the premium consumable that I used, I would actually ended up losing 5,000 credits here, firing all of those premium rounds inside these matchups. But, as I mentioned, I had a lot of other games in this vehicle, such as this one on Lakeville, where we were top tier and we completely dominated getting Confederate high caliber and made 60,000 credits profit because we didn't fire a single premium round inside this one. So if you can make 60k in your same tier matchmaking and pretty much break even in your +2 matchmaking, you're still going to be making a healthy profit in this vehicle with or without a premium account. But still, I would never recommend buying tier 6 premium tanks if your plan is to solely make credits. You're far better to buy a tier 7 or preferably a tier 8, as their credit multipliers are far higher. Still, the T78 is no slouch when it comes to making a good profit. Just don't buy it if that's your only intention. One thing this vehicle is actually very good for is making decent crew training. It gets a healthy bonus for being a premium vehicle, and I was able to accelerate the crew training of I think my T67 substantially by playing a bunch of rounds in this tank. So, all in all, T78, do I think that this is a must-have tank? No, not really. I don't think it's a must-have tank, unless you absolutely love American turreted tank destroyers. I probably wouldn't be too fussed about this one. It's not going to be the best crew trainer, although it'll be a very decent one, but I'd far rather play a tier 8 premium tank to be able to make a healthy amount of credits along the way. And with the amount that we have to play front line this year, it's debatable about whether you would want to buy a tier 6 premium tank when if you bought a tier 8 one, you could be grinding it in front line, right? Another thing that's very interesting about this tank is the disparity in prices between where Wargaming want you to spend your money with regards to the packages available. If you buy the standard T78, which does not come with the Federalist unique style. It's £11.61 on the European server. But for that style, it's £17.09. I think that really the tank should come with the style for that price. But I also have no doubts that the idea of spending about $10 to be able to get a gigantic American flag on the side of your premium vehicle, or should I say over the front of your premium vehicle, is going to be a no-brainer. Oh my lord, actually a baseball bat as well? Alright, I'm finding out new things about this tank that I had no idea about right at the end of the review, right? Okay, well, $10 for a baseball bat and an American flag. I think I've sold this tank to enough of my American viewers, right? But for me personally, it's definitely not a must-have. I think you'd probably be better to pick up a Cromwell Berlin and get yourself a Brothers in Arms crew. But nevertheless, all T77 and Hellcat drivers, rejoice. This is one for you. Alright, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think about the T78 in the comments down below. Do you think it looks absolutely awesome? Do you think that there's flag style on it is absolutely garish? Do you think the vehicle is priced well? Do you think it's overpriced? Do you think the tank looks like it's worth a pickup? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.